My next guest is the man responsible for such cinematic classics as The House of Usher, Wild Angels, The Monster from the Ocean Floor, The Attack of the Crab Monsters, Little Shop of Horrors, and hundreds of others. A great many of his films are considered cult favorites, and many of their stars are now the biggest names in Hollywood. Please welcome Roger Corman.
Roger Corman, America's reigning young master of terror, has created the ultimate in comic horror. It conquered the world.
That's not right. Cut!
My father was an engineer, and I started out in college to sort of follow in my father's footsteps. I graduated from university with a degree in engineering, and I was the failure of the engineering class. Everybody else got good jobs, but I became the film critic of the Stanford Daily, the university newspaper, and I had always loved films, and I became more and more involved. So I just took the degree in engineering and headed straight for Hollywood and got probably the lowest possible job you could have in Hollywood. I got a job riding a bicycle around the lot at 20th Century Fox delivering the mail. At that time, the studio ran on a 5-day week, but production was still working on a 6-day week. So I volunteered to work for nothing on the 6th day, which was Saturday, if I could work as just delivering messages on the set, so that I would get onto a set and see what was going on and learn from it. And they were happy to have me. If somebody's going to work for nothing for an extra day, why not? But they recognized that, you know, I was willing to do extra work and was ambitious. So when an opening came up in the story department for a reader, they called it story analyst, but you simply read scripts and novels and so forth that were submitted, and you gave your opinion. I'm not certain they ever paid any attention to the opinions, but you wrote a synopsis of what had been submitted.
Excuse me. Is this Miracle Pictures?
Sure is. If it's a good picture, it's a miracle.
My job was to read the script, write a synopsis, and then give my opinion, because the producers didn't want to read all those scripts. They preferred to read a synopsis and then decide which ones they actually wanted to read the full script.
Come on. Want a souvenir?
Yeah.
I got a job as an assistant to a literary agent, and my job there was to write synopsis on things that were submitted, and then to help him go around and try to sell the scripts and so forth. So I started writing myself while I was a literary agent, and I wrote one script and put an assumed name on it, and I sold it. And I remember Dick Hyland was the literary agent, and I told him what I had done and said, I've sold this script, I'll give you the 10%, but I'm going into production. He just laughed. He said, why not?
You think you're going to make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first.
It conquered the world.
I've been quoted as saying, I never lost a dime on any movie, but it's not true. I was asked by a New York publishing company to write an autobiography of my work in films. And they put the title, How I Made 100 Movies and Never Lost a Dime. And I called them and said, look, I've made more than 100 movies, and I've lost a couple of times. You can't make that many films and never has a loser. And the editor at the publishing house said, Roger, has the title of every picture you've made reflected exactly what was in the picture? And I said, call the book anything you want. I've been at various times the writer, the director, and producer. Probably the biggest success commercially was a picture called The Wild Angels, which was about the Hells Angels motorcycle gang.
Well, we want to be free. We want to be free to do what we want to do. We want to be free to ride, and we want to get loaded.
It was reputed to be the most successful B picture ever made, but it was eclipsed a little bit later by Easy Rider. The guys there had worked on The Wild Angels, and Easy Rider broke my record.
Is it the collective will of the people that niggers should be allowed to take over the whole world? Because that's what's going to happen, Mr. Shipman.
I made The Intruder in 1960 when there was a great deal of agitation about the integration of schools with blacks and whites in the South. I was very much on the side of the integration of the schools, and many people objected to it. And at that time, I really never had lost money on any picture. I could go to any of the independent distributors and they would back anything I wanted to make. It was just, everything was going so well. So I bought the rights to the novel, developed the script with the writer Chuck Beaumont, and took the script to all these companies that backed me. Everybody turned me down. I couldn't believe it. So together with my brother, we put together some of our savings. I think a picture cost about $60,000. We shot in black and white in the South. It got really wonderful critical reviews. It went to the Venice Film Festival, which didn't win, but it was there, and won a couple of minor film festivals, and was somewhat acclaimed, and it was the first picture I ever made that lost money. However, that was in 1960. In 2000, Bill Shatner, who played the lead, and I did a narration for the DVD version. So 40 years after the picture was made, the DVD version finally got our money back.
People, something happened today. 10 Negroes went into the Caxton High School and sat with the white children there.
I think the film was not successful for two reasons. One, it was simply a subject that the audience did not want to see. It was in the headlines, there was a lot of agitation, and they were tired of it. Secondarily, I think I was a little bit too serious. It's almost as if I was preaching rather than entertaining. So from then on, I felt I will not be this much of a preacher. My films will entertain, but I'll make them on two levels. If I make, say, I made a picture about Ma Barker, a Southern woman whose farm was dispossessed during the Depression. And on the surface, it was a story of Ma Barker and her sons who were robbing banks. But beneath the surface, there was a comment on the social situation during the Depression that caused her to turn from being a farmer to a rural gangster.
One mother only America could produce. Bloody Mama.
The fact that I tried to combine entertainment with some thoughts that were important to me, I think made the film stand out a little bit and did help what reputation I may have. I had read the works of Edgar Allan Poe in school, and for Christmas I asked for the complete collection of everything he ever wrote. My parents were happy to give it to me. I might have asked for a shotgun or something, and I always loved Poe's work. I thought he was dealing with the unconscious mind before science was aware of the interconnections between the conscious and the unconscious. And that's what led me. Started off to make The Fall of the House of Usher. Only I had no idea to make a a series of Poe pictures, but the picture was so successful, they asked me to make another one, and I ended up, I think, making 6 of them, and they wanted me to make another, but I said, that's it, I'm stopping. I've said all I want to say on this, and this was in the 1960s. I'd been shooting the Poe pictures in the studios. I said, I want to go out into the streets and step away from the studio and shoot what is going on in the world around us.
Cut. I'm Peter Fonda. We've just finished making a movie dealing with the most talked about subject of the day, LSD.
I think everybody has regrets about something. I'm not certain, but I remember in 1970 I was doing a World War II picture in Ireland called Von Richthofen and Brown. I was so tired. We were shooting at a private airport outside of Dublin, and to go to the airport, you had to take a road to the airport, but there was a fork in the road, then it was one way to the airport, one way to Galway Bay. And every morning I came to that fork and I said, I'm really tired. I really want to go to Galway Bay and just sit on the beach. But I dutifully went to the airport, shot the film, and I've forgotten what. I had directed 55, 56, 57 films in 15 years, and I was just worn out. So I thought I'd take a year off and come back after a year and rest. But I got bored during the year, and I started my own production and distribution company, New World Pictures, and it was an immediate success. It was doing so well, I just never got back to directing. And I've sometimes wondered what would have happened if I'd continued as a director. I think the monster and various fears associated with us has been with us since prehistoric times. There were real monsters. There were mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, one thing and another. It was really dangerous. And in the dark, you didn't want to go out in the dark because you couldn't see them to protect you.
Greetings, Green Brother.
As a matter of fact, the first narrative ever written in the English language, Saxon, was Beowulf, which was about a monster. So I think that fear of the monster that operates particularly at night and has powers that we don't have has been with us since before civilization. So I think what we see today with sort of science fiction monsters is simply the newest interpretation of monster myth.
Beware, the creature from the haunted sea.
I try to come up with new and original monsters, and I try to take different interpretations. For instance, I made a picture called Sharktopus for the Sci-Fi Channel, which was half shark, half octopus. The theme was, because I'm very concerned about global warming, was that this creature was a prehistoric creature frozen in the Arctic ice pack, and with global warming, the ice melted. The creature came back to life and terrorized people. So I got a little thought of global warming and what's going on into a monster movie. Also, I always try to put a little bit of humor in a monster movie. It's not a genre you want to take too seriously. I try to be as original as I can, but you can't be completely original all the time. You have to be aware of what has gone before. I think Picasso once said, if an artist can take all that has gone before and add one tiny bit to it, that is a full career for an artist. So I say I've taken what has gone before and added that small amount to it. It may be that I have an eye for talent, but also having started as a writer, then became a producer director. I've worked in all three areas, so I think I have experience in all of these areas, so I'm able to recognize new young people coming up, that somebody who's so many producers or studio executives have really been executives as such. They've not been a writer, they've not been a director, so they're not really attuned to say, well, here's somebody who made a nice student film, and I see that there's an opportunity. For instance, I've done this a lot in America, but there's one of our, we call them our graduates, that would show a little bit of how I operate. I was doing a number of pictures in Russia with Mosfilm, the biggest studio in Russia. And on the first couple of films I did, I co-produced with them, I sent over an American director. And then I thought, why am I sending an American director to Moscow when there's so many good Russian directors? And I said to Vladimir Dostal, the head of Mosfilm, I'd like to go with a Russian director who is good and who speaks English. I wanted to be able to talk to the actors. Send me some samples of some directors you think are good. And he sent me samples of 5 directors. And I called them back and I said, these guys are good in sort of, you can see either say a classical way or a cliche way. They were doing it in the standard way. Send me 5 more. So he sent me 5 more directors, and I picked Timur Bekmambetov. And Vladimir called me and he said, we've sent you the work of 10 directors. You've picked the only director who's never made a picture. He only makes commercials. And I said, I don't care. I see the style in which he makes these commercials, and I think he's the one I want to go with. After he did that one picture with me, he went out on his own and made Night Watch, which was the most successful picture in the history of Russia. And he's gone on to be a major Russian director. My actual influence on Hollywood isn't really that great, but I am proud of the fact that a number of what we call our graduates have gone on, and they're multi-Academy. I think more Academy Award winners have started with us than with any other company.
I'm the king of the world!
I'm very, very proud of that. I made a picture called Death Race 2000 in the year 1975. And from Death Race 2000, George Miller made Mad Max. And he approached me at a party and he said, I saw your picture Death Race in Sydney, and I thought I could make one of those, so I made Mad Max, the Road Warrior.
Yes, sirree! A clean hit, a perfect hit, and no pain for the target.
Road Warrior, Mad Max came from that, and there's also, there have been a couple of articles written that the Hunger Games has followed the themes of Death Race 2000 very closely. So I've been interviewed a couple of times as to what I think, did Hunger Games copy Death Race? And I said, I don't think so, but I think they dealt with a lot of similar ideas. These ideas are in the air, and maybe I did them first, but they had the same sort of thoughts, and they did something very similar. The script of Water Wars was shown to me, and I thought, this is a great script, but I make films generally around somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million, and it's just too expensive. It's a great idea, and I think the picture's been underrated. I think the picture was not as successful as they hoped, but I think it was a better picture than many people thought.
Oh, thank God.
Bernd Eichinger, a German producer who did Das Boot and a number of very big pictures, was a friend of mine, and he came to me in the fall of somewhere in the 90s. I've forgotten what it was. And he said, I've got a problem, and maybe we can work together to our mutual profit and solve it. He said, I have an option on the Fantastic Four. I have a script and a budget, and the budget is $30 million. And I've got a good script, and I don't have $30 million. And if I don't start shooting by the end of the year, by December 31st, I lose the option. Can you make a low-budget version? And I said, how much money do you have, Bernd? He said, I've got $1 million. I said, all right. We met on a Friday, and I said, I'll send this down to the guys at the studio you can look at it on the weekend. I'll look at it on the weekend, and we'll meet on Monday. So we all met on Monday, and we all agreed I could make this $30 million picture for $1 million. I said, it's not going to be exactly the same picture. There could be a few scenes we're not going to be able to do. So I remember the start date. I said, this is fall, and we're going to have to rewrite the script a little bit to ease the cost down. We need every day we can get. I suggest we start shooting on December 30th. And Bernd said, no, they'll know what we're trying to do. Just beat the option date. Let's start shooting on December 26th. And I said, Bernd, they're going to know what we're doing anyway. It doesn't make any difference. I think we ended up starting shooting on December 28th or something like that. And my agreement with Bernd was that he would put up the $1 million to make the film. I would make it in partners with him, and I would then distribute it.
But the forces of evil are out to destroy their cosmic power.
He had a clause that if he could sell it to a major studio within 90 days after the picture was finished, he would pay me a rather large sum of money and buy out my distribution rights and give it to the studio. And it appeared that he wasn't going to make a deal. We prepared a full advertising campaign. We had the posters, the artwork, the trailers, the TV commercials, and we were ready to go.
It's clobber time. The Fantastic Four.
And at the last minute, he made a deal with 20th Century Fox. And 20th Century Fox financed him. I think the picture eventually cost something like $60 million. But part of the deal, and he paid me, so I came out very well monetarily, but I was a little disappointed that we never had a chance to distribute it. But Fox said they didn't want the $1 million picture to be distributed because it would conflict with the $60 million picture. So the deal was Bernd agreed not to distribute the $1 million picture. It was one of the weirdest deals I've ever been connected with. The market was primarily United States theatrical. We got a little bit of money foreign, but not that much. And there was a little bit of money also from television, but not much. It was U.S. theatrical. As television ate into the theatrical market, our horizons diminished, as it were. But I was aware that the foreign market was growing, so I made pictures that I felt could appeal beyond the United States. And each time as things changed, we simply adapted to it. We said, okay, the world moves on. We were doing this yesterday. We've got to do something different today. So I adapted to each successive wave. The current wave is the most dangerous of all, I think. The fact that for low budget and medium budget films, which is what I make, there's very little market anymore. And the DVD market, which we then specialized in, is fading away. There's still some money in DVD, but not as much as it were. And Matter of fact, I was on a panel discussion at the Producers Guild about the future of films, and the other two producers in the discussion were very pessimistic. And I was the oldest one there, and I said, I'm optimistic because I think we're going to see a transition to the internet, and it will be a whole new market, and actually maybe better, because we'll not be giving part of the money to theater owners or to distributors. There'll always be some little distribution charge, but for the producers, the money will be coming straight from the public. Now, my prediction was correct, except the amount of money coming from the internet is very little. So right now, this is the most dangerous period for an independent producer making medium and low budget pictures I've ever seen. But I'm getting fairly old now, and as a matter of fact, it sort of sparks my interest. It's sort of one last challenge to see what we can do.
Oh, still! I want action!
I love the process of making motion pictures, whether they're going to go into theaters or DVD or on the internet is a secondary thing. It's simply I love making motion pictures. I actually preferred it when the pictures were going into theaters. But for, as I say, low-budget pictures, that's not happening. So I hope to continue making films simply because I love making films.